I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, continuing with this Survivor series. A few more to go in this short series, and thank you so much for the response. It's overwhelming. You know, I think we all love a survivor, don't we? I mean, I think as human beings, we love to hear someone survive. There is nothing, genuinely, I think, nothing more brilliant than someone escaping a situation or coming through something. It's this really kind of, I don't know, I think it's like a sort of euphoric feeling that we can all share. Because, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's partly because we are still the animals of our past. You're probably like, shut up, Barry. Stop trying to give us some sort of idea of like what it's about. But actually, I think there's something in us that's all still that slightly hunter-gatherer thing. We're all that of yesteryear. Do you know what I mean? Even now, we walk about, you get up in the morning, you make your coffee, you go to work, you go about your life, but survival is at the heart of it, isn't it? It's why we all connect with these stories. I genuinely think it's why people are connecting really well with these stories. And honestly, I'm going to stop warbling on about this and get to the story. But it's, don't leave me out here on my own. Don't leave me hanging. You must feel that too. Right, okay, so we are in an area with this story that I have wanted to cover for so long. Just haven't found the time. I just haven't found the right opportunity. And now I have. We are seeing more and more of what I'm going to talk about on the news all the time, and it's a bad thing. It's a really bad thing to be seeing lots more stories connected to what I'm going to talk about. I've broken the rules here slightly because we're going to begin with a survivor story, but we will also be discussing another story which sadly involves a death, but also a part survival. The two stories I'm going to tell you tonight, they live entirely in the same world, and I have to tell both of them, really, for perspective on the subject for this Survivor Stories. Okay, are you ready? Let's go. In 1990, in India, a family awaits the arrival of a new baby. Both mother and father are prepared for the birth of their new child into their existing family. So this mother and father, they already had one son, and he was aged 4. And the new baby was just about to be born. Now the family in question were the Argalwas. Probably not the best pronunciation of this Indian name. Forgive me. I did research it. Just not sure I'm saying it right. The research I did said to me Argalwas, but I'm not quite sure it's entirely right. But anyway, we'll go with that. So the Argalwas are, well, they're neither a poor nor a particularly wealthy family. They sort of sit somewhere in the middle. Both parents work, but with the upcoming birth, the mother, she will have to take time off work to do care for the new baby. So, along comes a beautiful baby girl. Healthy, happy, and they name her Lexmi. So, Lexmi, what kind of child is she? She's playful. She's smart. She's ambitious. But she's also very, very creative. Lexmi says this: I had always wanted to be a singer or a Kathak dancer. But my father was a cook and we didn't have enough money for lessons. I think we can all relate with that at some point, don't we? Can't we all relate with when you're young, and you want to be a singer, a dancer? You want to be those things that are. And I never, ever for a second, if anybody turns around to me in the world, be they 8 years old, be they 15 years old, be they 60 years old, and say, I want to be a singer, a dancer, an actor, I want to do those things, go and do it. Just fucking go and do it with your life. Do you know what I mean? Don't let anybody stand in your way. Don't let anybody tell you you can't be those things. So, I love that Lexmi has this ambition when she's young to be a dancer. Maybe an actress, maybe a singer. She doesn't know, that's fine. You're just figuring it out. But, as I just said there, Lexmi's family, they couldn't afford lessons for her to go and to study music. And so music was the thing that she really felt like she wanted to go and study. She particularly wanted to learn violin. Great. Lovely. So age 15, what does she do? Well, she gets a job. She gets a job in order to pay for her music lessons. So she thinks, right, okay, I want to learn violin. Fine, I'll pay for it myself. Just rather than just expect that her parents are going to pay it, she gets a job in the local bookshop. I mean, that's good. And that's, a bookshop, that's a nice job if you are a teenager. Teenagers, sometimes they have to do paper rounds. They have to, I don't know, teenagers have to do all sorts of things to earn money. I've told you before, one of my teenage jobs was delivering bacon. I was the local bacon boy. I had a backpack full of bacon, chapping on your door. Hello, do you want some bacon? Oh yes, smoked, unsmoked. Tell me. Bacon boy sounds like the shittest superhero in the world. Hello, I'm Bacon boy. Anyway, here's Lexmi, and she's 15, so she works in the bookshop. Fine. Let's pause for a second on that picture of 15-year-old Lexmi and dig just a bit deeper. Was everything in her life going well? No, it wasn't. There was something in her life she just couldn't shake. And that something was a man who had an obsession with Lexmi. Now this man, he was 32 years old. Lexmi was 15. This man lived in the local neighbourhood and he saw her on a daily basis. He had developed a keen obsession with Lexmi. It had gone on a few years now, and in fact, this man had been a family friend. He had been interested in her since she was aged 13. Now, as I said earlier, Lexmi was born in 1990. The year's now 2006. So she's 16 years old and he is 32. Am I the only one here who's thinking, paedophile? Pedo. Why is a man who is 32 openly, I mean he is, he's not even hiding it, he is openly admitting his desire for a 16-year-old girl? Why is no one calling the police? I mean, okay, it's not fair to say that no one was paying attention. Her family were aware, and like I said, he had once been a family friend. They had asked him to take a step back from spending time in the house when Lexmi was there. And he'd been warned by some of Lexmi's extended family. So, uncles, cousins, they had warned him, stay away. So there was an awareness. How much, what am I trying to say? How seriously people were taking his attention towards her is maybe a problem. Because I don't know that people actually in her family, as much as they were saying, step back, don't, stop being interested in her, she's only 15 and you're 32. I don't know that people were taking it as seriously as they could have been. And they should have been taking it much, much more Seriously. When she was aged 15, he stopped her one day in the street and he proposed marriage to her. She was 15. Come on. Fucking hell. He's 31. What 15-year-old girl is going to go, yeah, okay, that's fine. That sounds great. No, fuck off. No, of course she's not. Now, not that this makes any difference, and it makes no difference at all. Lexmi at 15 was really outgoing. She was really chatty. She was creative and she was attractive. Again, I've written in my notes here, I've written in capitals, not that this makes any difference. It's sort of like me shouting at myself in note form. But I mean that, like, regardless of whether she was chatty, creative, attractive, all of those things, it doesn't matter. She's 15 and he is 31. So he's proposed marriage. She said, on your bike, mate, I'm not interested, get the fuck, and she's gone about her life. Good for her, good for Lexmi, good for her at 15 years old to stand up for herself. Did he take this well? Well, what do you think? In any of the crime stories you ever hear, do rejected men ever take it well? I don't think so. So, his male pride is hurt. There's a saying that always sticks with me. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Well, I would argue, there is the equal fury in men who feel their pride has been hurt. Especially when it's something like he has publicly asked for her hand in marriage and she has refused. Okay, so it's a normal day for Lexmi. She has finished school. She makes her way to her part-time job at the bookshop. And just before she goes to work, she makes one quick phone call. And the phone call that she makes, it's to set up a music lesson for the following day. Because remember I said earlier on, she was really interested in getting music lessons happening. And this is why she has taken this job. She's saved her wages and she is so excited because now she can start violin lessons. And she plans one for the following day. So, she's made the phone call, she's quite happy, and off to work she goes. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. It's beginning to get dark, and as she walks down the street to the bookshop, she sees a shadowy figure in the distance in front of her. But she ignores the figure and she carries on walking down the street. The figure disappears. She thinks it must just have been someone going in to their apartment. But it's not. The figure is the 32-year-old man who she rejected a year ago. Just as Lexmi reaches the door to the bookshop, she feels from out of nowhere a cold feeling. A freezing cold sting across her face. and suddenly her mouth begins to fill with a horrible taste. Lexmi has only a few seconds of a cold feeling on her face before it turns into a searing pain, and the skin on her face begins to dissolve. Lexmi has had a bottle of acid thrown onto her face. The 32-year-old man that asked Lexmi to marry him is so enraged by her rejection that he stood by with a beer bottle filled with acid in his hand, and he waited for her to arrive at work. As Lexmi collapsed in the street, screaming in pain, he ran away. Fucking dickhead. So as he ran, Lexmi, she found her way into the bookshop and an ambulance was called. But the acid was working quickly, really quickly, really so fast to do irreversible damage to her face. This is the thing about acid attacks. The impact happens so fast, and within seconds the damage is done to a point, where it cannot be reversed. I know this is going to sound like a ridiculous comparison, but it's not. It's actually just the same. 'Cause I thought this through, sat, and I worked this out. If someone shoots you, okay, if they don't shoot you dead, a bullet into you, it can be dislodged quickly. If that's necessary, and if that's what's going to save your life, the bullet can be taken from you. If you've been stabbed, that wound can be covered and the bleeding can be stopped. An acid attack has a completely unique effect in that it cannot be reversed. And that is what the fucking bastards who throw acid know. That's what they know. Right there, right then, when you throw that, what you're doing is fucking irreversible. Of course, I'm not saying if you shoot someone, it's irreversible. No, of course it's not. But if that person survives, the bullet can be, removed from them and there's a chance of survival. With acid, when you throw fucking acid in somebody's face, you're literally doing something that cannot be changed. So why? Why throw acid into the face of a 15-year-old on her way to her part-time job trying to pay for her music lessons? Well, of course, rejection. He reasoned that if Lexmi didn't want to marry him, then she was not going to marry anyone. He would destroy her pretty face and he would make no man want her. So Lexmi is rushed to the hospital and she goes through the absolutely agonising ordeal of doctors and nurses attempting to remove the remaining acid from her skin. She undergoes a major operation straight away to try and rescue any skin that might have remained on her face. In the days after the attack, Lexmi remained in complete shock. Of course, as did her friends, her family, and they're all there. They're all at the hospital 24 hours a day. They're with her. Now, out of curiosity, I asked myself at this point this question. And I don't think I'm wrong to ask this question. Tell me if I am. Please go ahead. Tell me. Shout out, Barry, you're a fucking idiot for asking that question if you think I am. But I wondered, right, at what point does someone who has had an acid attack get the opportunity to see the damage? Like, I know that sounds daft, but is there a guideline? Is there a rule? Is there someone's had an acid attack to the face? We have to wait a certain number of days, certain number of weeks to allow them to be able to see their face or to see the damage. And I know, right? I know you might think that's coming from a really stupid place and a really stupid question, but actually it's not, because I think the physical effect of the acid on you is one thing. I think the psychological impact, the whole other, having to actually deal with looking at your face and realising what that actually looks like is a huge, big thing. So in that respect, I don't think that actually as a doctor you would go, well, it's fine, let's just rip the bandages off and let them look at it. There has to be preparation. There has to be something in place where doctors go, we have to prepare this person for doing this. But I can only imagine that as a victim of that, and I pray to God I never am, and I pray to God, any of you listening, I pray to God you never are. But there has to be a point where they also will want to see the damage. And I don't envy doctors or nurses or anybody who has to be the person who goes, okay, this is what the damage has done. But actually, I asked that question. I said I thought it sounded stupid. And actually, when I did my research, turns out I wasn't wrong to ask that question. And there is. Similar to burns victims, similar to anyone who has been attacked, there is a holding period where doctors are allowed to say, I don't want the person who has been through this to actually see the results of this until I have spoken to them about actually what they're going to face and actually what they're going to see. I think that's great. I think it's amazing. I think it's so necessary because, yeah, if fucking again, God forbid, an acid attack happened to me tonight, and I know I would want to be like, show me my face, show me what it looks like. But I would also similarly want a doctor to step in and say, no, you're not seeing it until I can talk to you about this and you're ready to see it. And you would think it's your, it's every human right. We've all got the right to go, I want to see the damage, but actually, no, you need to be psychologically a little bit prepared. You're never going to be psychologically prepared for it, of course you're not, but you need that guidance. So I'm glad that medical fucking systems around the world actually are able to say, no, you don't just rip off the bandages and go, well, you know what, this is what your face looks like, this is the damage. You actually prepare people for that. Lexmi's face was so badly damaged that it remained bandaged for almost a month before her family were allowed to look at her face. She describes that her time in the hospital was brutal because all she wanted was to see her own face. She says this: there were no mirrors in the ward that I was in. Every morning, the nurses would bring me a bowl of water to help me freshen up, and I would try my hardest to catch my reflection in that water. And all I would see is glimpses of a bandaged. When the time came for Lexmi to first see her face, she says, I was devastated. I had no words to speak. Lexmi spent 3 months in hospital and she underwent 7 operations on her face. The time came for Lexmi to leave hospital. After those 7 operations, doctors could only monitor her from now on. What happened to her next? Well, for the next 3 years, Lexmi went into hiding. She refused to leave her apartment in New Delhi. She wasn't keen to see anyone. She struggled to look at her own face. She struggled to just meet people and talk to people, and so she didn't want to leave her own house. She spiraled downwards and downwards and downwards into a real pit of depression. But remember what this series is called. It's called the Survivor series. Remember that. It's going to get better. As Gloria Gaylord once told us, I will survive. Look at me. Try again. I will survive as long as I know how to love and I know still love. Nailed it. And Lexmi, well, she does survive. But yeah, the struggle for her, it's really real. It's hard. It is a long, long road. She goes in and out of those feelings of can't cope, can't deal with anything, and then she starts to get a bit of strength. And she starts to go outside. And at first, of course, what happens when she goes outside? Well, the reaction to her face, it's horrible. She's been through 7 operations on her face. The doctors have treated it the best that they possibly can. But, she's still walking down the street and people are pointing at her, looking at her, laughing at her. People are repulsed looking at her face. And they don't even try to hide the fact that they're repulsed by her. People will just be like, oh my god, your face is disgusting. Oh, that's horrible. Laughing at her, pointing at her. Does this stop her? Yes. Yes, it does. At first. However, she takes that, she goes back into a period of reflection, she thinks, and she comes back stronger. She decides, this is what I may have to put up with for the rest of my life, is people looking, pointing, laughing, being disgusted. I may have to deal with that until the day I die. But is that going to stop me and make me sit in my apartment anymore without any social interaction? Is it fuck? What she does next surprises people. Rather than seek vengeance on the man who threw the acid in her face, who, by the way, is now long gone and in hiding, prick, she goes to the Indian courts and she asks, how do I file a public interest litigation? For you non-lawyers out there, oh yeah, that's actually me. I just said that like I was a lawyer, but I'm not. It's essentially a piece of paper which can be taken to the courts when you want to pass a new legislation. That's what that means. So she goes and she says, right, how do I make something happen? How do I basically make a change? So the courts say, well, if you want to be even taken seriously, you would need 10,000 signatures. And what she's trying to do is she's trying to change the legislation and the laws around acid attacks, how available acid is, how victims of acid attacks are treated, and how perpetrators of acid attacks are treated in court. And they say, well, it's so well and good, but we need 10,000 signatures. So, it's quite the task that Lexmi has. Bearing in mind that it's hard for Lexmi to even just leave the house every single day without someone looking at her face, pointing at her face, making comments, talking about her as she sits on the subway. They say she needs 10,000 signatures, and Lexmi works tirelessly day and night. She gets 27,000 signatures. And then she goes back to court. And now they have to sit up and take notice. Lexmi actually brought to court, I love this, something called Lexmi versus the Union of India in the Supreme Court. And she stood there in court and she fought for the law to be changed on the sale of acid. She fought for it to be easier to prosecute someone who commits an acid attack. She also fought for the government to create a compensation scheme for acid attack survivors. She wanted survivors of acid attacks to be treated under the same rights of the person with a Disability Act 2016. Now I know that sounds tricky because you use the word disability in there, but actually I think she was completely right in the way that she saw that, in the way that she read that, is that actually support needs to be given. It's not enough to just take someone who has who's suffered an acid attack, treat them in hospital, and then send them back out into society. That person needs support. They need they need to possibly be sheltered. They possibly need somewhere else that they can go in the interim before going back to their life, if they ever can go back to their life. I think she's amazing. I think she's really amazing, in in her own way. She took what happened to her, and she turned it around, and she went, I will change laws. I will actually change how victims are treated. But our campaign, it doesn't really stop here. Lexmi has pretty much decided she is going to make this her life's work now. And she really goes about making a massive, massive change. And there is a change. There is a huge alteration in acid sales across India. There is a massive change in how perpetrators of acid attacks are dealt with. Her work is so good in this area, right? It's so good. She's recognised for it. She ends up on Indian TV. She travels to other countries. She's spreading the message about acid attacks and that victims need better support, but that also countries need to look at how they are making acid so readily available. Along the way, she is presented with an award for her tireless work by, oh my God, the one and the only Michelle Obama. Now, I don't want to get political here. I don't want to get into a whole Democrat-Republican thing, okay, on the podcast. But I just want to say, Michelle Obama. I mean, I feel like I would have the best night of my life out with Michelle Obama. I'd be like, yo, Michelle, let's get some cider. You, me, babe, some Strongbow. Let's do karaoke. Right. You be Sunny, I'll be Cher. I get you, babe. You know what I mean? I feel like me and Michelle Obama would have an amazing night out. So, Lexmi, while all of this work is going on, she becomes a real public figure. But what about what's happening privately? The internal scars, the aftermath. Little by little, she is learning to have confidence in herself again. And along the way, she meets a really lovely man called Alok Dixit. And he's a journalist. He's very much behind her campaign to stop acid attacks. So the two of them, they fall in love. They live together. And there's something interesting here. I think instead of marrying and having a public wedding, they decide they're just going to live together. She says, we decided to live together until we die. We're challenging society by not getting married. We don't want people coming to our wedding and commenting on my looks. I think it's a little bit heartbreaking, don't you? I mean, not getting married for the reason that you don't want people to look at you is, it's just really, I think it's really odd. For someone who's such a fighter for the rights of, acid attack survivors, I don't know, it's a very complex one. I think it's just it's a work that went out for yourself. But I sort of get what she's saying. She says, the look of a bride is the most important thing for people. So we have decided to never have a ceremony. It's tricky. It's tricky that for me. I find this very conflicting for me at this moment, because I feel like she's now out as this public face of, I've survived an acid attack, but she's also saying, I won't get married because I don't want people to look at me as the acid attack bride. I don't know. I'm a bit conflicted by that. But, I will say this about Lexmi. I think I don't think self-indulgent. I think she's just being honest. I think she's just dealing with what's honestly in front of her. In 2015, Lexmi and her partner gave birth to a daughter. Gorgeous. This child is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. This baby is so beautiful. Go and I'll post images of them all. It's just so beautiful. They called the daughter Pihu. Sadly, as a relationship, it didn't really last. Lexmi quickly separated after the birth of her daughter from her partner. That was the start of a very, very, very difficult time for Lexmi. She was in a real spiral at that point. She was receiving absolutely no child support from her ex-partner. And her family, right, they were doing the best to support her as they could, but they couldn't really afford very much. Lexmi was relying on handouts and help where she could. And it was all really taking its toll on her. She was a new mum at this time. She was still trying to deal with being a new mum and everything else that's going on in her life. And a member of the public did something so lovely, and it just goes to show humanity is not fucking dead at all. An anonymous member of the public set up a GoFundMe page for Lexmi. Now, this was a member of the public who chose to stay completely anonymous, but had been affected by acid attacks, and was devastated to see that Lexmi was in a situation where she had to stop fighting. And through donations, Lexmi got back on her feet. She was able to afford to rent a house and feed her child. And why? Because, I said it earlier on, people love a survivor. We all love a survivor. We fucking love it. Lexmi, it's just so frustrating. She tried for so long to just even get a regular job. She just wanted to get a restaurant job, a shop, whatever. They just wouldn't take her. And they just wouldn't take her because of her face. They just wouldn't take her because this face was not something that they thought people in a fucking restaurant should have to deal with. Oh, you shouldn't have to deal with your waitress coming over with, this face. Well, I'm sorry. Get the fuck. If you're sitting in a restaurant and you can't deal with that, then you have a word with yourself. Have a fucking word with yourself. Anyway, what of Lexmi now? Well, she's found work, and she's steadily making her way back onto her feet financially. She started an online campaign called Stop Acid Attacks, and she continues to lobby for changes to be made worldwide about the sales of acid. The man, the fucking 32-year-old who threw acid, was never charged for this crime. It sickens me. But I'm going to end Lexmi's story, because this is about survival, with two quotes from her. And she says this: The man who threw the acid will forever cover his face. I won't. Love that. And she says, oh, I love this one. Oh, I almost want to cry a wee bit when I read this one. Oh. She says, he... Try again. Barry, stop crying. She says, he changed my face, not my heart. He threw acid on my skin, not my dreams. She says, I will continue to fight, and I will continue to survive. And so ends the story. Now here's the thing. It ends the story, but it doesn't end the discussion. So, along the way, I did a lot of research and I found some really, really interesting facts and some thoughts and some statistics on this subject. And I thought, right, well, let's talk about it, okay? Let's talk about it. Let's start with a very general idea. The idea that now it's a really common misconception that acid attacks are more likely to happen in Asian countries than in non-Asian countries. So that's a belief. And do you know where that comes from? That comes from the idea that actually acid is more available in Asian countries than it is in non-Asian countries. Well, yeah, that's not true. That's not true. It's actually not true. You can access acid anywhere in the world. You can access it anywhere. A lot of what the acid attack stuff is about is that actually it's so stupid. It's the belief that it comes from the revenge killings, the honour killings. It's the men who were punishing their women because they were, somehow scorned by a woman. They were somehow, making them unattractive to other men. It's not really true. And I hear what you're saying, right? Okay. I hear you're saying, yeah, but Barry, that's the story you just told us in the last story. Yeah, okay, that's true. That man felt that he needed to pour acid on Lexmi's face because he was, as a man, his pride was damaged. He was hurt. But that's not the whole story. That's not the whole story, because actually acid attacks, they're just not always about that. A lot of the stuff that I've researched is UK based, and I said at the very beginning, it's horrific that in the UK acid attack stories, they are in the news daily. We are seeing them all the time. I'm reading them on a daily basis, and it's just terrifying. I found this to be really interesting in terms of looking at it with gender, 4 out of 5 acid victims in the UK in the last year were men. Now, that is not, and I can tell you this now, truthfully and honestly, that is not what the news is reflecting. I don't know what it's like in your country, wherever you are, be you Australia, be you America, be you Spain, Italy. I know I've got listeners in all of these places. I don't know what acid attack reports are like in your country, but I will tell you this: in the UK, you do not see men being attacked by acid on the news. It's always the stories of a female having acid thrown on her face. I'm not saying it's always men being attacked, of course it's not. But what I'm saying is this: it's not always Asian culture, and it's not always about honour. It's not always about revenge. But, sometimes it is a hate crime. And it's not that more women get attacked than men. And it's not that more men are attacked. I'm just saying it's a bigger, wider issue than it's just about, a man throwing acid on a woman's face because he feels he's been let down by his woman. I mean, it's not clear. Statistically, it's just not clear. And this is the thing that I've come to realise, is that the more and more I look into it, is that actually the way that it's presented in the news is awful. It's absolutely awful. We get told all the time in the UK, oh, it's gangs of black men who throw acid. Not true. It's groups of homophobes who use it as a hate crime. Not true. It's Asian men, and it's all to do with cultural values. Not fucking true. The problem is, it's not that easy. Anyway, basically, what I'm trying to say is, it's not as simple as putting it down into what I feel like I'm being fed at with the news at the moment is, it's these particular groups of people who are using acid. It's this particular type of person who will commit an acid attack. Bull fucking shit. Bullshit. Anybody can get their hands on acid at any moment, and do not tell me for a fucking second that it's just groups of young Asian men who want to attack. It's not that. It is not that. It's not. And this next story, I'm slightly breaking the rules, but that's because I'm just a bit of a rule breaker. Why do you have to be a that's heartbreaker, not rule breaker. Why do you have to? I'm gonna reappropriate the song, right? You be everyone in the song. You be the Bee Gees, right? The Bee Gees sing, "Why do you have to be a heartbreaker?" So they sing it nice and low, right? So if you want to just sing that after 3, I'll be Barbara Streisand, who sings it up quite high, right? Okay. And so your line is, "Why do you have to be a heartbreaker?" Right, you ready? I'm going to be Barbara. 1, 2, 3, and why do you have to be a heartbreaker? Oh, we were good. I think we sounded good together, but I could only hear myself, which sounded fabulous. With this next story, the survivor of this story isn't the central figure, but I picked this because there's always a survivor. Are we ready? Okay, let's go. Imagine the horror you must feel as a parent when you get a call from the hospital telling you that your son or your daughter has been brought in. Now imagine you are in another country and you've got to fly from Belgium to England. You would be feeling terror, panic, fear, disbelief. That's exactly what Mark Vendongen's father felt when he received that very call. His father received a call that said Mark is in hospital. It's serious and you have to come quickly. Now his dad was in Belgium when he received that call, and he immediately jumped on a flight to get to England and see his son. It must be terrifying. Your son is in a hospital in Bristol, which is in Bristol. Oh, fuck me. I've just realised. I've written in my notes. In a hospital in Bristol, which is in Bristol. No, that's meant to be is in a hospital in Bristol, which is in England. I mean, that would be like me saying she was from America, which is in America. So, shut up. So, Cornelius, Mark's father, is called to the hospital. And when he first gets there, he's not told what has happened to his son. He's just told his son has suffered a terrible accident. Cornelius says he's going through the feelings. This must be a mistake. You got this wrong. My son can't have had an accident. So who is his son? Well, his son is Mark. Mark is in his late 20s and he is an engineer living in Bristol. The family are from Belgium, and Mark has decided that he wants to live and work in the UK. Mark is an intelligent young guy, and see, from all the photos that I saw of Mark, I was like, you look to me like someone I would like to go out for a drink with. Do you know, he just looks a lot of fun. He's smiling in every photograph that you see. He just looks like he's having a great time. So basically the story is, Mark's family, they were from Belgium. Mark's mum died when he was very young, and so he'd been raised by his dad. And really, him and his dad just had the closest relationship ever. So his dad was working in Belgium, and Mark decided that he wanted to study engineering and he needed to come to the UK to do that. So he came, he studied engineering, and he was working away in the UK. Fine. So what of Mark's life? Well, he was in a relationship with a woman called Berlina Wallace. And now, Berlina was a bit older than Mark. She was 20 years older than Mark. So when he was 28, she was 48. Now, their relationship, it wasn't going very well, and Mark had left her for someone else. He'd fallen for someone else that he thought he wanted to be with for ever and ever. And that's fine, I think that's fair enough, Sometimes you're in a relationship and you just go, you know what, you're no longer the person for me. I think it's okay to be that person and go, I need to leave this right now. Because, I don't want to get too lost in a whole thing here, but, I think you can get trapped into something with someone where you go, what about being together this length of time? Well, it doesn't really mean anything. Length of time means nothing. You could have been with someone for 50 years of your life. If you meet someone after that 50 years and that person's the right person, then you've met the right person. Okay? So that's just, you just move on. But did Berlina take this well? Well, no. She did not. When Mark's dad arrived at the hospital, having flown from Belgium, he entered the ward, and the first thing that he heard was the voice of his son screaming, "Kill me now. Kill me now. If this is what my face is going to look like, I don't want to live." Cornelius, Mark's dad, he recognised the voice, but not his son. When he looked at his son, he saw that his son's body had suffered such a violent attack that 25% of Mark's body had been so attacked by acid that it was burning away. His face, his legs, and his torso had been burned. He had lost sight entirely in his right eye, and his left was hanging on by a thread. Mark was about to be blind. The young man he knew as his son was writhing around in a bed, and he was utterly unrecognisable to his dad. His injuries were so bad that his father only had 1 hour with Mark before he fell into a coma. Mark stayed in that coma for 4 months. During his 4-month coma, his left leg had been so badly damaged that it had to be amputated. When Mark woke up after 4 months out of a coma, he couldn't recognise any part of his body as his own. So, how did he get here? Well, as I told you, Mark left Berlin and he started a new relationship. Well, as I told you, Mark left Berlin and he started a new relationship. Berlin at first, she asked Mark to come back and he said no. She tried to seduce him and to have him come back, and he said no, he didn't want to be with her. Now, one night, and okay, right, maybe it was a moment of weakness, she asked him, would he come and stay at her house? Now, they'd been separated for a while. Mark had a new girlfriend. He was happy in his new life. But Berlina said, would you just come round to my flat one night? We'll just have a talk, you and me. He said yes. Even though, their relationship is long dead. But he agrees to go round to her house. Now, we've all made mistakes. We've all done things that we shouldn't have done. And I'm sure every fucking one of us wants to get into a time machine and say, Mark, do not go back to Berlina's house. Don't do it. But he does. He goes to his ex-girlfriend's house. He falls asleep in the bed. And in the night, he wakes. He wakes to find Berlina standing above him, and in her hand, she has a bottle of acid. She pours the acid over Mark's face, then she throws it down his legs and onto his torso. Berlina is standing above him, and in her hand she has a bottle of acid. She pours the acid over Mark's face. She then pours it down his body, over his torso, and on to his legs. In a panic, she flees the scene. She leaves Mark screaming in agony. And as she leaves, she calls an ambulance. Aye, very fucking good. Glad you called a fucking ambulance. Fucking hell. Do you know where she got this acid? Amazon. She actually went onto Amazon and found sulfuric acid on Amazon. Unfucking believable. This is what licks me from the previous story. This is what she's trying to fight, is that you should not just be able to go on and find it. You just should not be able to do that. So let's go back to where we last left Mark. He had been in a coma for 4 months. He had had his leg amputated. So he comes out of that coma. And again, he's going to go through what we just talked about in the Lex Me story. The moment of having to deal with seeing yourself the psychological impact of realising what your body now is. Mark's injuries were so bad that he couldn't feed himself. He couldn't go to the bathroom. He couldn't wash himself. And he began to fall into a deep, deep depression. When he had the strength and when he could, he talked, but he talked about the pain, and all he said was, I want to die. He no longer wanted to live, knowing that he would need constant care. So his dad tries his best to bolster Mark, and he says to him, come on, we can do this, right? We can do this. Let's get you into somewhere where you can live independently, and we'll make this work. I'll support you. Mark gets released by the hospital and he goes into a daycare centre. So he's still in England. He's living in this daycare centre. And he lives there one day before he calls his dad and he says, please come and get me. Please. I can't be here anymore. Mark's dad walks in and he finds his son lying on the floor of the care home. And his son, Mark, is in a terrible state. Mark had tried to get out of bed, go to the toilet, and he'd ended up in an absolutely horrific state on the floor. And so his dad is there saying, okay, you're not coping with this. You're not coping with trying to be independent on your own in a care home. But his dad says we can make this work. We can make this work. We can work through this. This is just a small stumbling block. We can get through it. We'll keep you here in this place and we can work through it. And Mark says, no. Mark says, I want to go back to Belgium. I want to go back home where I live, where I came from. I want to go back to Belgium. So, his dad, okay, he says, fine, let's go back to Belgium. And when we get back there, we'll find you the right support, the right care, and we'll find you a way through this. But now the next request from Mark is going to come. And the next request from Mark is, I want to die. For anyone. For anyone in the world, that must be the most horrific thing that you can hear. I can't imagine what that's like as a parent. I can't even imagine. Mark says to him, I just want to die. He says, I've come back with you, Dad, to Belgium because euthanasia can happen here. And I just want to end my life. What his dad must have went through is just horrific. It's the kind of decision that just must be impossible. And you know something? I'm not even going to be disrespectful enough to even try to talk about that because I don't know that. I've never been in that position. I pray to God you've never been in that position, so Let's not pretend that we know what that moment's like. This is what his dad has to say. He says, "No one wants to live like that. I couldn't leave my son's bedside. He was constantly itching. I had to support his arm 24 hours a day. There is a membrane around the bones, the holes, the sulfuric acid. It continued to burn inside of him. My son was in the most unbearable pain, and I couldn't help him." The euthanasia of Mark was carried out on January the 2nd, 2017. Now, when it was happening, they asked that his dad not be present. But Mark said no. "I want my dad holding my hand." Mark was dead 30 minutes later, with his dad holding his hand. So what of Berlina Wallace, the acid attacker? Well, she had been arrested and she stood trial. Now, the trial became muddy because the trial, it took place in the UK, and Berlina was tried for murder. Why for murder? Well, the prosecution argued she had intended to cause Mark such severe injury that she'd intended death, and he had actually eventually died from it. The defence, well, they argued, well, okay, death was his choice. He went to Belgium. He chose to die. So the case was thrown out of the court by the judge. She felt that the judge in the case, right, so she felt that the fact that, Mark had chosen to go to Belgium and die because he didn't really want to live that life anymore because he just couldn't cope with it, was muddying the whole case. So didn't really want that to be a part of it. So the case was closed, but Berlina's act, that was not under... But Berlina was to be tried again. So Mark's dad is sitting there in the courtroom, and he's listening to every bit of this. In the second trial, there is a jury, and they show the jury the photograph of Mark's injured body. Injured from the acid attack. Now these images, they are the first time that they had ever been seen by the public. Just the public, of course, inside the court. And you know why? The police officers had decided when they took the photographs that they were so horrific, that they were so bad, that they should never be seen. They should never be shown to the press. They should never be for public gain. No one should ever see them outside of a court of law, because the injuries upon Mark's body from that acid attack were so brutal. So the jury, they hear the case, and of course they find Berliner Wallace guilty, not just of grievous bodily harm, but grievous bodily harm with intent to kill. The judge, handing down the sentence, told Berliner Wallace this: I have never in my career seen such a vicious injury so willfully applied to another human being. When you, Miss Wallace, poured acid on your ex-boyfriend's skin, you intended to cause him lasting physical and psychological damage. This is an act so wicked and so calculated, I have no choice but to hand down the sentence of life in prison, with a minimum of 12 years sentence. Right, now I know what you're thinking. 12 years. That was one of my first thoughts. I was like, 12 fucking years. Send her to fucking life in prison. You're gonna fuck it. Anyway, I got all that rage. But you're saying life, you're saying 12. I kind of love this bit, right? Because I like anyone that breaks the rules. The judge, in that case, she had to be given a slap on the wrist by the court. Nothing too serious. Because when she left the court after handing down that sentence, she said under her breath, not knowing that the microphones were still on, she said, good luck to her trying to get a parole board on her side after 12 years. Now, it's not ethical to say that. It's not ethical, but it's human. And she knows, that judge knows. That judge knows a parole board are going to meet that case in 12 years and go, are you kidding? I don't care how great your time in prison has been. You might have the best defence in the world. You literally poured a litre of acid over a man. I'm sorry. And that judge knew that in that moment, and that's why I kind of love that judge. And so it really is a horrible, tragic end to that story. And I'm gutted that Mark had to get to the point in his life where he felt like the only way out was death. And how does this fit into the Survivor series? Well, it all lives in the same world as acid attacks. But Mark's dad, let's go back to him. The man who lived through every bit of that, he says, I know I didn't go through what my son suffered. And he didn't survive, but I did. I can only say that the parent of a child who chooses to end their life is a survivor. And I think he's right. I think he is absolutely right. Okay, well, hi. God, to literally stand above someone and pour acid over them. Horrific. Alright, thank you for listening to this episode of the Survivor series. a couple more of these to come, and then we'll move on to something new. If you want to get in touch with me, you can. Instagram, Twitter, join the Facebook group. It's a wonderful place to be. If you want to support the podcast, you can on Patreon. Just want to get in touch. Just say hi. Just please do. Don't hang about. Just get in touch. Say hi. Alright, so I'll speak to you soon on the next episode. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.